Your Family Tonight podcast. Each week, we are serving up motivation and inspiration to help you get weeknight dinner on the table, letting you recapture a little calm in the crazy. And now, your host, speaker, author, and married mother of four, Mariefiebach.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast, episode 112. Today is a replay of one of my top-rated podcasts of all time. It's episode 68 that originally aired in February of 2020, titled ALDI 101. For those of you who haven't been around a while, ALDI is one of my favorite grocery stores of all time. I have an ALDI 3 minutes from my house, and it is where I do the bulk of my grocery shopping. So sit back, enjoy this replay of ALDI 101, and learn how to shop at one of my favorite grocery stores. Welcome to the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. I'm your host, Mariefiebach, and we are on episode 68. Today, we are going to talk about ALDI. I have to tell you that I am in a very unique position. Where I live, within 5 to 7 minutes of my house, I have an ALDI. I have two Krogers. They're Dillon's, but Dillon's is owned by Kroger. So I have two Krogers. I have a Whole Foods, a Sprouts, a Trader Joe's, and two health food stores. So I really have my pick of any grocery store anyone could really want to go to. And ALDI is where I do almost all of my grocery shopping. I do hit these other stores for a few things here and there, but the bulk of my day in, day out grocery shopping, I do at ALDI. I was in ALDI the other day and ran into an old friend, and we got talking as we were bagging up our groceries, and I'll tell you about that as we go through this podcast. But we were bagging up our groceries, and she said, I remember the first time I went to ALDI, I was so nervous. I didn't know the system, and I was worried that I would do something wrong, and it was really intimidating. And I'd kind of forgotten what that felt like, but she reminded me, and I have totally been there. So if you are someone who is nervous or intimidated by ALDI, I am here to help calm your nerves. And if you are a regular go-to Aldi shopper, I can't wait to hear what you like to buy at Aldi's and why you think it is a good value. The first time I ever went into an Aldi, I was in college, and this was the mid to late 90s, and I was at school in Ohio, and I was one of the few people that actually had a car. And so my friend said, let's go to ALDI. And at this point, I was just shopping at Kroger for my few little dormitory groceries. And my friend said, no, ALDI's is supposed to have the best value on everything. I can't wait to go there. And so we drove a little bit further across town and went to this ALDI. And I walked in and I thought, oh my goodness, what have I gotten into? Now, mind you, this was the late 90s before ALDI had really done a huge branding update. And I walked in and everything was off-brand, and I didn't know if I could trust the off-brands or not. And so I went through and I got my few little basic things and then left the store and thought, I am never going back to that ALDI. So it wasn't like a stellar first experience. Fast forward many years, and again, I was a young mom with little kids. My mother's friend had 5 kids, and she had some kids that were my age, and then she also had younger kids still at home. And she had told my mother that she loved shopping at Aldi's and that it was the best value, and she saved so much money. And again, young and married with little kids, we didn't have a lot of extra money to throw around. So if I could trim my grocery budget a little bit, it would be good for our family. And so I remember I knew I had to get a quarter. So I remember getting a quarter, and I knew I had to get bags. So I remember just grabbing like a couple of bags and going to Aldi by myself. I left my kids with my mom because I was so nervous to go there by myself with my kids. And so I left my kids with my mom, and I went to Aldi for the first time. I've pretty much been going there ever since. I was blown away by the prices and the quality of the items, and I became a regular Aldi's shopper. So let's talk about what you need to prepare before you go to Aldi. The first thing is that most of the time you're not going to be able to do all of your grocery shopping at Aldi. I usually have 1 or 2 items that Aldi doesn't carry that I know I'm going to have to get at Kroger or Sprouts or one of the health food stores in town. So that's the first thing, is know that you may not be able to get everything at Aldi. The second thing is make sure you bring a quarter. And I'm not saying bring 25 cents. I'm saying bring a quarter, because you have to put a quarter in to get a cart. And if you're like my son and collect quarters, and which state is on the quarter is really important to you, know that you're not going to get that quarter back, because in the end, you're going to end up with a different cart. And I'll go through that a little bit later. But bring a quarter, and all you have to do is push the quarter in the little slot, and it's going to release a chain that you can then pull the cart out and you have it. And they do this to keep prices down, because then they're not having to pay someone to collect carts in the grocery lot. They don't have to worry about carts walking away. If someone leaves a cart out in the parking lot, there's always someone who is willing to pick it up to get a free quarter. It's one way that Aldi saves you money. The second thing that Aldi does to save you money is they do not bag your groceries for you. So you're going to need to bag your own groceries. It's best if you can bring your own grocery sacks, but if you don't, and how many times I have forgotten my grocery sacks, I can't even tell you. You can buy paper sacks for 7 cents each, or there are often boxes that are floating around the store. They even have a big bin of boxes out sometimes, and you are totally free to take those boxes and put your groceries in one of their empty boxes. And again, 7 cents for a couple of bags. Like maybe if I buy like 4 bags, I'm spending less than 30 cents. And I can promise you I have saved more than 30 cents on the groceries that I bought. So don't let not having bags keep you from the savings that Aldi's can give you. Even if you have to purchase a few bags or use one of their boxes, you will be fine. The first thing you may notice when you walk into an Aldi, or you may not notice but you'll feel it, is that it's quiet. Most grocery stores have music playing, and their music is very special music that is designed to get you to buy more. Aldi's does not pay to have music put in their stores, and so it feels quiet. And that was something that was really striking to me, and it took me a couple of times to figure out why Aldi's felt different than my regular grocery store. But when I figured out that it was because they didn't play music, it made so much more sense to me. So if you walk into an Aldi and it feels different, I bet it feels different to you because they are not playing music. Another thing to notice about Aldi is there are lots of people that go in there with a mission, and they will fly through their aisles with their carts. I had a friend put something on Facebook saying that she survived not being run down at Aldi by other carts. And it's true. It can happen. I may be guilty of being one of those people on occasion where I have my mission and I can get in and out fast. Because when you go into Aldi, you have so many less choices that it's much easier to get through the grocery store fast. So let me talk about that. Most of their store is all store branded items. So you're not having to compare 3 different brands of canned tomatoes. I think that canned tomatoes is a really good example to talk about this. When you go to buy canned tomatoes in a traditional grocery store like a Kroger, there's going to be the House brand, and there's going to be the Hunt's brand, and there's going to be the She San Marizano brand. And you're having to look at 3 different brands, and then you have to decide if you're going to get whole, or you're going to get diced, or you're going to get crushed tomatoes. And there's a lot of decisions there. When you go to Aldi, you can decide between diced or crushed tomatoes, and there's only one brand. and there's only one size of each can of those brands. So you don't have to decide if you want a large can of crushed tomatoes or a small can of crushed tomatoes. There's only one size. Your choices are made much quicker because there are fewer choices to make. Now, some people are nervous about house brand items, and I can tell you that there are only a few items that I have ever had at Aldi that I do not prefer. I find their house brand items to be very high quality, but here's the scoop. If you take it home and buy it and don't like it, and you keep your receipt and you take the empty can or the unused portion back, they will totally give you your money back. No questions asked. And if you have something where maybe this happened to me one time with potatoes. I bought a bag of potatoes and they just went bad faster than they should have. I had them in my house less than a week and the potatoes got moldy. And so I took the half-used bag of potatoes back and I said, listen, these got bad faster than they were supposed to. They let me get a new bag of potatoes and gave me the money back. It's called their double quality guarantee, where they will replace the item and give you your money back. Sometimes you have to ask to get your money back rather than just replace the item. But if you politely say, I want the double quality guarantee, or I've been told you get your money back and the item replaced, it's no questions asked. They totally replace the item. They totally give your money back. So if you're nervous about trying a store brand, go ahead and try it. And if you don't like it, just keep your receipt and take it back. It's really, really simple. And I promise you, they're not weird about it at all. They're totally used to that. Another thing about their store brand items, and this is really important to a lot of allergy moms especially, is that items that are Aldi's house brands are all free of synthetic food dyes. And if you're like me and have food dye sensitivities, this is huge because food dye hides in really tricky places. Things like pickles and cake mixes and even some of your potato chips that have flavorings and things on them, like barbecue chips or cheese chips. All of those things can have synthetic food dye in them. But if you are buying a house brand Aldi item, even their quote unquote Fruit Loops, do not have synthetic dye in them. So if you have someone who is sensitive to synthetic food dyes, Aldi's is a wonderful place to purchase your items because you know that all of their house items are free of synthetic dyes. Now, that said, Aldi will have some special buy name brand items. For a while, my Aldi had Cheerios brand Cheerios and Cheerios brand Honey Nut Cheerios in the aisles of their store. And those items are not guaranteed to be free of food dye. But if it is an Aldi branded item, it is guaranteed to be free of food dye, which is huge in my house. And if that's something that you're dealing with, then it can be really, really helpful. The other thing about Aldi's is their stores are small because they only carry the basic items. Our Aldi last summer went through a complete remodel to get updated to their new style of store. And when my kids went in it the first time, they said, Mom, this looks like the grocery stores in Italy. And they were right. Aldi is a company that was based out of Germany, and their stores very much look like a European grocery store. Their new updated stores look great. They're really user-friendly, and it's usually pretty easy to find your items in that store. But what's interesting is they're not laid out exactly the same store to store. So some stores will start with the baking goods, and another store will start with the snack goods. So you're not going to necessarily find consistency of floor plan from store to store. But that store, once it has its floor plan, rarely will change it. My Aldi, when you walk in the door, you're walking right into the produce section, which is great because that is one of the best things that you can buy at Aldi's. Now, Aldi carries a lot of organic produce, and I have found that sometimes their prices are great and sometimes their prices are okay. They never had bad prices on organic produce, but it often isn't always the best buy in town for organic produce. But if you are buying conventional produce, it is almost always the best buy in town. One thing when you're comparison shopping for prices between Aldi and other grocery stores is to make sure that you look at the unit price. One example is there was another local grocery store that was advertising cutie oranges, the little clementine oranges, and they were $2 a bag, but the bag was only 2 pounds, while Aldi had for $2.29 a bag of 3 pounds of cuties. And I often find that their quantities are higher, and if their prices are only slightly higher, but usually, especially on conventional produce and fruit, their prices are hands down the best in town. I buy almost all of my lettuce and my fruit. My kids, we always have apples in the house. My kids eat a lot of apples and peanut butter for lunches and snacks. And usually there's one kind of apple that is on sale each week. One week it might be pink lady apples. That's like 3 pounds for $1.69, which is what it is this week. The next week it might be Honeycrisp apples or Granny Smith apples, but there's usually one kind of apple that's on sale, and it's usually for $1 a pound or less. This winter, about every 2 or 3 weeks, they would run Honeycrisp apples for less than $1 a pound. They were like 99 cents a pound, and you would buy them in a 3-pound bag, and it was a great deal. Now, the apples are packaged in a bag, in a 3-pound bag usually, and so you can't like hand pick each apple. And usually they are smaller apples that might be slightly misshapen. And what I mean by slightly misshapen is the core might be slightly off center. Again, works totally fine for my kids, but if you're wanting absolutely giant, beautiful, pristine, perfect apples, you're not going to be able to pick and select each individual apple. For my kids, it is so fine to pay $3 for a bag of Honeycrisp apples that are a little bit smaller, which I actually prefer because then my kids will just eat a whole apple and I don't have half of an apple that's floating around my refrigerator because they can't eat a whole giant apple. But it's just something to be aware of and look at. A lot of their produce is like that, where it's already kind of put into a package. The zucchini comes in a package of 3, and their peppers are in a package of 3. I find that it works fine. I don't have any problems with it. If you're someone who wants to put your hand on each piece of produce, much of their produce is not sold that way. There are a few things that are sold where you pick each individual piece of produce, but their prices just can't be beat. Kind of moving on to the bread section. I don't purchase much bread. I do usually keep in my freezer 1 loaf of their sprouted wheat bread, which is a really good buy. If you look at the ingredients, it's totally clean. It has sprouted grains, and it's a real simple bread. I like to get their French bread, which is a take and bake. So you have to kind of bake it in the oven a little bit. And I use that for my French dip sandwiches. I really like their brioche buns for hamburgers in the summer. But their breads are always good quality. They usually last well on the shelf in my house. I also buy a lot of their flour tortillas, and they're great, and they last well in my pantry too. After the produce in my Aldi, we kind of go to the snack food aisle, and their chips and their snack foods are all house brands. I have found them all to be really great quality. There was one podcaster I was listening to who said their Cheetos are just not like real Cheetos. I'm not a huge Cheeto fan, so I couldn't tell you, but that's just a word of warning if you're really wanting real Cheetos. I've heard that their Cheetos aren't quite the same, but we buy a lot of their tortilla chips and find them to be of better quality than house brands in other stores. We really like the quality of their tortilla chips, and we buy quite a few of tortilla chips. I usually buy their oyster crackers mainly because they're dairy-free, and sometimes it's hard to find saltines and oyster crackers that don't have dairy in them. And so I like to keep those on hand for my kid that doesn't do well with dairy. And after the snack foods, while I'm on snack foods, they have a large selection, a whole line called Live Gluten Free. It's Live GF. And if you are gluten free, their products are really high quality. A lot of my friends that are gluten free like most of their gluten free products. So if that's something that you need in your house, then you can usually trust the Aldi's gluten free products. And again, if you try one and you don't like it, take the packaging back and they will totally refund your money. So that's just something to remember if you need gluten free products in your house. My Aldi's has a very large selection of premium meats and cheeses, things that you would put on a charcuterie board, and they are priced really well. It's the best price you're going to get on a little small wheel of brie in my town. Their little salamis and meats and things are really well priced. My daughter likes their little hummus cups. I'll buy those for her. She'll eat my homemade hummus, but sometimes she just wants the packaged hummus and I just get it for her. So they're little hummus cups, and really their prices on cheese are very, very good, especially like just the simple block cheeses, like if you're buying a block of mozzarella or a block of Colby or Colby Jack, and they're pre-sliced cheeses for sandwiches, their prices are great. Their baking goods are kind of the next aisle, and they don't have any whole wheat flour. So that's something I have to get at another store, but they do have almond flour. So if you're paleo or gluten-free and you're cooking with a lot of almond flour, they usually have almond flour at a fairly reasonable price. They also have organic cane sugar at a decent price. And so I'll often buy organic cane sugar there. They have peanut butter, but they don't have like the true 100% natural peanut butter that's just peanuts and salt. But they do have a lower sugar version of peanut butter, and they have organic peanut butter. And I will buy their peanut butter. My kids eat a lot of peanut butter. And so we do purchase a lot of peanut butter at Aldi. On that same aisle is where all of again, I've talked about the pickles and that they're dye-free. We buy a lot of their pickles and olives and canned artichokes and all of those kinds of things. And this is also where the oils and vinegars are. I find that their prices on extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, and ghee are actually a little bit higher than buying it at a place like Sam's or Costco. Now, at Sam's or Costco, you're buying it in larger bottles or containers. And so you may not need that or may not have access to that. Their prices are reasonable, but they're not stellar on oils and vinegars. So that's kind of some buyer beware. While we're talking about buyer beware, I've talked about how I work with Cornerstones where they're foster youth or coming out of incarceration, and they get to go grocery shopping every 2 weeks, and they can only go to one place. And I was shopping with this one kid one time, and he had picked to go to Aldi. They can pick going to Kroger, Walmart, or Aldi. And he had picked to go to Aldi, but he needed toothpaste. And Aldi's only had one kind of toothpaste. It was a name brand. It was like $3 a tube, which was really kind of expensive for toothpaste because you can usually get toothpaste for like $1 a tube at either the dollar store or at Walmart. And I felt so bad because he needed toothpaste and he had to pay more for the toothpaste. And when you're on as tight of a budget as these kids are, $2 is a big difference in their budget. So anything down that aisle that is healthcare, toothpaste, toilet paper, paper towels, napkins, paper products, I find their prices are a little bit higher than average. Again, if you're only going to one store and that's your only choice, you're not going to get a bad price, but you probably won't get the best price in town. So that's kind of one of those buyer bewares. Be careful about paper products and healthcare items at Aldi's because I think their prices are fair, but not bottom dollar prices. One thing that is always the best price that I ever find in town at Aldi's is chocolate chips. Chocolate chips at my Aldi are $1.69 a bag. It's a full 12-ounce bag, and they taste great. They taste like the Nestle chocolate chips. I find the price to be great on chocolate chips, and cocoa powder, baking soda, baking powder down that baking aisle. Those are usually the best prices in town. Their spices are very inexpensive, but I am used to like some high quality, high end spices. Depending upon what kind of spice it is, if it is some Italian seasoning that I am throwing in with some spaghetti sauce, Aldi's spices are great, totally fine. They're hot pepper flakes. I totally use those all the time. If you get into some of their other spices, I find that I prefer the ones from my high-end mail order source, but in a pinch, Aldi's spices work well. The one spice that you can only get during the winter time, during Christmas baking season, that is hands down way less expensive is cream of tartar. Cream of tartar is the scrapings of the inside of wine barrels, and it's an acid that you put in things like snickerdoodles, and you use it to stabilize egg whites. It is the least expensive at Aldi's, but they only carry it seasonally. And that's another little thing about Aldi's is they have items that they carry according to the season when people are buying it most. So at Christmas time, when people are doing baking, they're going to have extra spices for Christmas baking. You're going to be able to get pumpkin pie spice and ginger and cloves and cream of tartar. And then in the summer, they're going to have summer things. They're going to have an extended selection of popsicles and things that you want in the summer. All of their items that are seasonal are usually marked on the price tags. It'll have a little box that says seasonal item. If you find one of those seasonal items that you like, go back and buy more to stock up. Seasonal items, they actually restock throughout the season, but then there are other items called special buys. And special buy items are only purchased once. They don't restock them, and when they're gone, they're gone. I've found that different special buy items come 2 to 3 times a year, and then some only come 1 time a year. And if you find a special buy item that you like, go back to the store right away and buy as many as you think you're going to want for the next year, because you won't see them again for a year in the store. Usually the special buy items are kind of done by a theme. They might have an Asian theme or a German theme or a Mexican theme or vegan theme or healthy eating theme. And so you'll see these special buy items that are by a theme. If you buy something and you take it home and you know you like it, and it was one of those special themed items, go back and buy a lot of them. One thing that comes in the summer as a special buy is their sorbet, and my daughter loves their mango sorbet. And so when I see their mango sorbet come into the store, I'll buy like 7 pints of it and keep in the freezer throughout the year for her to eat, because it's so much less expensive than buying sorbet in other stores, and she really, really likes it. So again, if you find a special buy item that you like and you see it, buy enough to last you until the next year. I've kind of gone through the dry goods. I'm kind of going to talk with you a little bit about the refrigerator case for things that I like to buy. Their dairy products are really, really good. They carry their own brand of Irish butter, but it's basically exactly the same as Kerrygold butter. And it's the salted version of the Kerrygold style butter. And we like to keep that on hand for putting on top of toast and that type of thing. Their regular butter is great. That's what I use to make my ghee out of. In the late fall, kind of around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, they'll usually run it on sale for $2 a pound. If you didn't know this, butter freezes really, really well. So I will often stock up on butter and just put it in my freezer when it's on sale. So that's a little tip for you. I buy their heavy cream and their half and half and their almond milk. Their almond milks are not 100% clean. It's not just almonds and water, but they don't have a lot of the additives and fillers. And I find them to be a really good price for good almond milk. Again, the regular milk and their eggs are all great. Make sure you open the eggs and make sure they're not cracked. You'll often see at Aldi's, they'll have the egg case and there'll be like 3 or 4 packages of eggs sitting there and they're open because there's some that are cracked. So open them up, make sure they're not cracked, but their eggs are great. And then moving from the refrigerator to the freezer section, there's a couple of things that I always buy in their freezer section. The first one is their ground turkey. They sell it in little 1-pound chubs. And this is what I use to make my homemade turkey sausage. And I use it to make my egg roll in a bowl. And I really like their ground turkey. It's a great price. And then one of the best deals in the store is their frozen fruit. It's about half the price there as it is to buy at my Kroger. And my daughters love frozen strawberries and frozen raspberries. They'll eat them just frozen straight out of the bag as a snack. And so I'm always buying bags of frozen strawberries and frozen berries. Now, there's one last little section about Aldi's that I want to warn you about, and that's the middle section. The middle section is where they have all of these special buys of non-food items, and they're usually done by a theme. So in January, they're health themed, and in February, they're bedroom and bath themed, and in the summer, you'll have gardening themes, and they'll sell all sorts of odd items. There was one of my blogger friends put on her Instagram story, what's the oddest thing you have purchased in the center of Aldi? And for me, the oddest thing I have purchased is a whack-a-mole sprinkler mat, where it was this little mat that you hooked your hose up to, and these little moles would pop up and fill with water, and then the kids could stamp on them and the water would spray out. And so it was like a game of whack-a-mole where they could jump from one little mole that would pop up filling with water to the other. Such a silly little item. So much fun. I've purchased a patio table. I've purchased a bench for my front porch. But in general, I kind of avoid that center. The quality of the items are okay, but they're usually not stellar quality. They're just okay. If you see something that you've been wanting, go ahead and try it. And again, keep your receipt because they will take it back. I mean, you can buy everything from, again, a whack-a-mole sprinkler to sports bras to panties to potting soil. Like, you just never know what you're going to find in the center of Aldi's. It makes a lot of sense that they have that because you think about this. If you are selling a $7 whack-a-mole sprinkler play set, it probably costs you $1.50 to put that on, and the profit is much higher than selling a bag of potatoes that's $2.69 that costs you $2.25. The profit margins are much higher on those things in the middle. From a retailer standpoint, it makes sense that they sell those items. I kind of avoid them as much as possible unless there's something really specific that I'm looking for that I see that's a really good buy. But that's kind of one of those buyer bewares. It's kind of like when you go into Target, you can get sucked in and you got to be careful there. But again, they're fine. So once you've gotten your cart full of groceries, you're going to go to the front checkout and you're going to have to unload your groceries on the conveyor belt. And then you're going to leave your cart behind you and they are going to stack your groceries into the person's cart who was in front of you. So the carts just are constantly rotating. That's why I warned you that you're not going to get your exact quarterback. You will get a quarterback from the person in front of you, but you're not going to get your quarterback. My Aldi's is really great about stacking my stuff really well. They're always neat and tidy, and they put my things like my chips and my eggs in the little place where the kids sit so that they don't get crushed by things like milk and potatoes. And they're really, really good about that at my Aldi's. I know that not everybody has that level of service at their Aldi. I've heard horror stories, but the employees at my Aldi are stellar, and I've never had a problem with them mistreating any of my groceries. They always handle them with great care. And then after that, you've got to put them in bags. I have a method to help you with that. When I bag my groceries, I bag them by where they go in my house. I have a pantry in my basement where I keep my deep freeze. And then I have my kitchen with my regular cabinets and my refrigerator. And I will put all of my items that go into my refrigerator in 1 or 2 bags. And anything that goes to my basement pantry, I put in 1 or 2 bags. Now, I might have frozen items that go in my refrigerator and frozen items that go into my basement pantry. So I'm not bagging the items by what type they are. I'm bagging them by where they go in my house. And that is just one of those small little mind shift things that will make your life so much easier when you get home from the grocery store. So if you're bagging your groceries at Aldi's, think about where that item is going to end up in your home and put items that go into the same place in the same bag, even if otherwise the items don't really make sense together. The other thing is when you are packing your bags, pack things square. Eggs, you think they're fragile and you want to put them on top? No. Put your eggs on the bottom because they are square. And like strawberries go into a box. So the strawberries and the eggs go on the bottom and they form the base. And if you pack things as square as possible, your groceries will be protected better as you transport them home and they will fit in your bags better. This has been kind of a long podcast, friends, but you can tell that I really like Aldi a lot. I would love to hear in the Feed Your Family Tonight Facebook group what your favorite things are to buy at Aldi's, or if you have never shopped at Aldi's and are nervous, I want to encourage you to give it a try. Just remember to bring a quarter, bring some bags, or be prepared to pay 7 cents a bag. Give it a try. If you find items that you don't like, which I didn't mention that, but I should probably do that here. I do not like the regular macaroni and cheese. When my kids were little and I bought hot dogs, I don't really buy hot dogs very much anymore, but I did not like their regular hot dogs. And again, Kendra of Lazy Genius said the Cheetos are not Cheetos. Other than that, I have never had a product that I didn't like as much or better than a national brand item. But if you don't like them, take it back, even if it's half used. As long as you have your receipt, they will totally replace the item and give you your money back. So don't be afraid to ask for their double quality guarantee because they totally will do that. They have done it for me many times. Give Aldi a try. If it's not close to your house, gear yourself up. Think of some of the things that you want to stock up on and give it a try. It might be worth your time to go there like once a month or once every couple months to stock up on a few key items. Again, I fully admit that I'm spoiled having all of these grocery stores 5 minutes from my house. I do as much of my shopping as possible at Aldi because I find that their quality and prices can't be beat. So for now, friends, thanks for joining us on the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. If you could do me a huge favor and in your app, rate this podcast with 5 stars. And if you really want to take an extra minute to write a quick review, it would mean the world to me and it would help spread the word about Feed Your Family Tonight. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Feed Your Family Tonight podcast with your host, Mariefiebach. If you like the show and want to know more, please visit feedyourfamilytonight.com. And if you'd like to help support the show, please leave a rating or review on iTunes or Apple Podcast. It helps spread the word that you can feed your family tonight.